Here at Sun City, as the SA Tourism Business Council holds a summit to get tourism back on track and earning at its true potential for such a gorgeous and varied country as ours. Getting tourists to and from and around South Africa is a key part of an enjoyable travel experience. But the airline industry globally has been hammered by COVID-19, sky-high fuel prices due to the war in Ukraine, and here at home, worsened in some cases by mismanagement and corruption. So we have four players who are no longer in the domestic and regional market. That's Kulula, BA, Mango, and of course SA Express, that was confirmed to be in final liquidation only yesterday. But we do have Semair, the new kids on the block, Lift, FlySafair and Airline. Let's get an idea of how difficult it is to run an airline in these times and how they are recovering. I'm joined by the CEO of FlySafair, Elmar Conradie. Elmar, thank you so much for joining us. So how tough has it been the last couple of years?
Well, it's actually funny, when you said the newcomer, I thought you were going to say FlySafair because in aviation, 8 years is normally not that long. You know, it takes sort of that time just to establish a brand, and for a long time we were seen as the new kids on the block, and now we're sort of the guys that need to keep the industry going. It's been incredibly tough. I think with COVID, the most challenging thing was the ups and downs. It was, you know, how to plan your capacity. The one moment you're flying, the next moment you're not flying. We've got very expensive assets that we need to keep busy. And we're now seeing the repercussions of that, because the airlines couldn't plan to add capacity, not knowing whether they'll be able to fly it. And now there's a lag. There's a bit of a lag between the airlines bringing in capacity and the demand is back immediately. The demand actually came back stronger than many expected.
I spoke to Lyndon Burns yesterday, and he was talking about how in South Africa, aviation recovery is lagging other regions in Africa, that we are not as quick and agile as we should be. He puts some of it down to the fact that SAA is almost giving away some of our routes, and other airlines out of South Africa are capitalizing on that. Is that part of the problem?
I think we need to split the two between domestic air travel. I think domestic air travel, the demand especially bounced back very, very quickly. But the issue now there is that there's not enough capacity. There just isn't enough flights provided by the current airlines. Regionally, there has been some administrative issues. The DOT for a long time didn't appoint the Air Services Licensing Council. So new airlines like us couldn't apply to fly, for example, to Joburg, Harare. So if the current airline didn't service that route, then it just meant that that route went unserviced. So yes, it definitely affected us. But I mean, in the past 6 months, they've appointed a council, they're slowly sorting things out, but it's a slow process, and I think that's what frustrates everybody. They can see the demand is there, and it's not happening quick enough.
And you know, business, and particularly running an airline, has to be incredibly agile. You work off tiny, tight margins. And then if you've got the regulator, government, not moving as quickly as they need to, that must be a real problem. I think it's something Mondli Gungubela, Minister in the Presidency, alluded to today when he gave his keynote address.
I think it was mentioned a few times today in different forums and at different places that the industry, the tourism industry and the transport industry really rely on government to work efficiently and fast and get approvals. And you know, often there's this misconception that private sector don't want red tape. I think it's not a case that we don't want red tape. We don't mind rules and regulations, but we need to be able to comply with it swiftly and know what we need to comply with.
Yeah, absolutely. What have you heard today from this conference that will make a difference? Because I think that one of the things that the Tourism Business Council, the CEO, Chipiwa Chibengwa, is quite big on is coming out of this conference not just as a talk shop, but with some real concrete action plans. Do you get a sense of that already?
Yeah, I think actually just after Sir Weavel's speech, you could have almost stopped part of the conference there, because he addressed some really critical issues right there and then. These issues aren't new. Most of the industry has mentioned it before, and I think it is things that can be easily fixed if the tourism industry, airlines and government work together. Things like visas, e-visas, scrapping visa requirements, processing tour operator licenses faster, things like that. So it's real concrete things that can be easily done, that's concrete, that will have an immediate effect.
How did you stay flying when others failed?
I think it's a difficult question to answer, because I think for each of the airlines that didn't make it, the reason was a bit different. I think we were lucky that we weren't caught sort of on the back foot going into COVID, whereas some of the other airlines were on the back foot. They weren't making money, so they didn't go into COVID with a very liquid situation. We at least did have liquidity, so that helped us through that first little bit. And then, in all honesty, the fact that some of the other airlines kept on stop flying, and we could just keep on flying and just chug along, so that helped us. The fact that in times where it was really tough, level 4 lockdowns and things like that, the other airlines just stopped flying and we could continue flying.
You mentioned earlier that with the demise of a number of airlines, we just don't have enough planes in the sky. Quite a few people are saying, oh, well, look, that's why the prices are going up. There's no competition, so they can corner the market. But the other side of that argument is we've seen fuel prices, jet fuel prices, skyrocket. So are you taking advantage of sort of cornering the market a little more, or is it really just down to fuel problems?
No, I think, so we've always said that our pricing is determined by supply and demand. So there's definitely a portion of it that's demand-driven.
There's a lot of demand now.
A lot of demand, or let me rather say there's too little supply in the market, which so demand is more than supply. So that is driving prices up. I see that as a short-term problem, maybe a 4 or 5 month problem still. Then all the airlines would have added enough capacity to at least fill the gap that Comair left. But long term, our input costs have definitely increased significantly. Fuel prices have doubled since last year for us. And people sometimes don't think about it, but even just the exchange rate. The exchange rate's at 17.49 now. And, such a big portion of our input costs are in dollars. All our maintenance costs, all our aircraft costs is all in dollars. So that drives our costs higher as well.
Are you planning to add more capacity? Are you getting more planes? Are you planning more flights?
Yes, we actually added more flights at the beginning of September. We're adding more flights at the beginning of October. And if we can, we've got another aircraft coming in, and we hope to have that in before December. So it's 3 aircraft before December, and then hopefully early next year, quite a few more to try and fill the gap.
How are we in terms of recovery post-COVID? Are we back to pre-COVID levels yet?
No, so at the moment the domestic market is on about 70% of pre-COVID, so 2019 numbers. So if you compare September or August 2022 to August 2019, we're on about 70% domestically, and internationally a little bit lower, maybe about 67%. If
you could have one change tomorrow in the industry, and I'm not talking about a lower fuel rate, etc., but a change that's possible, perhaps a regulatory change or a red tape change, whatever it is, what would be the one thing you would want to see?
Sure. The one thing I would like to see is unfortunately not just a South African thing, it's a whole Africa thing, is I would like to see a deregulation of traffic rights so that more airlines can fly between different African countries. I think it will stimulate the industry, it will stimulate tourism between the countries. But at this stage, it's very difficult for airlines to fly between African countries. That's why you have this strange situation that sometimes you need to fly to Europe to fly to an African country.
Yeah, but that is something that other airlines are capitalizing on within Africa, but we're not. Is that right?
Yes and no. Some airlines are capitalizing on it, like Ethiopian, but what also assists them is their geographic location. They're very well located that they can have a sort of hub and spoke into Africa. Whereas we're at the most southern tip of Africa.
Sure.
People don't. But just in terms of tourism, if somebody goes to Kenya and they also want to come to South Africa, just to have those skies completely open so that people can travel when they want to travel.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done for hanging in there and staying in the sky during COVID. And good luck as you add more capacity. We certainly do need it because tourism is such a crucial sector.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for chatting to us. And that, of course, is Elmar Conradie. He's the CEO of FlySafair. Do stay